Hey guys, Handyman Kevin here. Today we're going to do a pretty common operation, especially if you work in rentals, which is replacing an interior door. Um, these doors are pretty cheap usually, so they don't hold up really well. Also, tenants like to slam them and destroy them. So it seems like every time you turn over an apartment, you're going to replace at least one door. Luckily, it's pretty easy. Now, first thing you want to do, of course, is measure the existing door frame. Most important measurement for us is how wide across. And you see this is just a little under 30 inches. So if we buy a 30-inch door slab, we'll have about a 1/4 inch to cut away and play with for the bevel. Now that's probably the most common size in apartment doors is 30 inches. You also see everything from 24 to 36, but it's pretty standard. Height doesn't really matter. They all come plenty high enough, and then you just trim them a bit. But you can see that this is an 80-inch opening, which is also pretty standard. So when I go to the home supply store, I bet I'll find a whole pallet of 30-inch by 80-inch door slabs. Okay, and then you want to measure where the hinges are and write this down. Just measure to the top. So here we have 7 inches. And looks like 65 and 5/8 inches. And that'll help you get the hinges in place. If the original door is still in one piece, you could also measure the hinges off of that. So that's all I need. I'm going to go buy a door slab. Should cost less than $30, and I'll be back in a minute to hang it. Okay, so I went and got a door slab, 30-inch door slab, and now I'm going to mark where we're going to bevel the side. Now I know a lot of people hang doors, they don't put a bevel on there, and their doors, they need to cut them a little undersized so that they won't stick, and so those doors are never going to fit as well as a properly beveled door. You don't need much, but the edge that goes against the latch needs a degree or so of bevel so that it can get good clearance. Now, the actual opening is 29 3/4 inches. I'm going to measure just a little shy of that, like maybe a 1/16 less, just so we don't stick. Okay. And then I don't have a 80-inch straight edge with me, so I made 3 marks. So I'm just going to connect them up with my 4-foot level, which is the nice straight edge, which is always in the pickup. This line, as you can see, I know this is pretty basic the way I'm going through it, but I've seen a lot of doors that are not hung right. So I'm going to try to break down all the steps. Okay, we got a line there. Now while we're here, doors on carpet need a little bit of clearance in the bottom so they can clear the carpet. I found that usually the width of my level is about enough. So even though the opening is 80 inches and the slab's 80 inches, we want to pull off about a strong inch, which is how wide my level is. That way I won't run into the carpet. Now if this room had forced air heat, you'd probably even want to add a little more than that so you could get an air return. But this room doesn't, it has a central heater. And I don't think they run it because this is Southern California. I'm not sure anyone heats their house. Okay, so got my circular saw. Check, it's already set to about a degree of bevel. This is the point where you want to take one long good look at the door and make sure you're beveling the right side the right way. Because if you do enough of these, I guarantee you'll bevel it the wrong way and you'll have to go get another door. So, take a good look. Okay, looks like we're good. So, I'm just going to cut just outside the line, and that way I'll have a little bit to plane on or sand on later. That looks like it came out pretty smooth, but we still have some saw marks and what have you. Actually, I came out a little farther from the line there, but the nice thing is we can just go back there with a plane and we can clean it up. But before we do that, I'm just going to set my saw back to 90 degrees and I'm going to cut that bottom piece. Always, first rule of power tools, especially the circular saw, is always know where your cord is. So when you go to work on the edges of doors, I found that the best thing to do is just to stick a couple clamps on the side so you can stand that guy up and just work on the edge. So what I'm going to do is, you want to use like a number 4 or a number 5 hand plane for this, or if you have a portable power planer, even better. Those are actually made mainly for hanging doors like this. In fact, with one of those you can just cut the bevel with the plane because they take off material pretty quick. But this will work pretty well. You could use a block plane if it was all you had, or really even a sanding block, but this is a little flatter, a little longer, so you can get better results. And you just go through and you smooth out all the saw marks. And you notice I kind of clamp it between my legs, gives me a lot of control of the board. So that's almost there. I'll just do one more good pass and then we'll move on to putting the hinges on. Okay, now that we have the panel in the right shape and size, we're going to put the little mortises or gains for the hinges in. In the old days, we'd probably use one of these, which is a butt chisel, because you use it for hinge butts. Nothing wrong with that. All you do is you knife around the edge of the hinge, and then you take your hammer and chisel and take out a couple chips of wood at a time until it matches. And the main thing to realize or to remember is not to go too fast or try to take off too much wood. I've done hundreds of doors that way. However, today I have a router with me, which is just going to be a faster way to do it. Now, they make some really nice store-bought jigs for routing hinge gains. And if you're a pro, that's a great way to go. Or if you're doing several doors, but you don't want to afford a store-bought jig, they're pretty easy just to make a notch in a piece of plywood and use that as your jig that your router bushing can follow. But I'm only doing one door, so I'm just going to freehand it, and it'll be fine as long as I take my time. And also, this is an apartment, and no one's probably going to notice if I'm a little sloppy on my hinges. Obviously, I wouldn't do that if I was building a custom house. But this will work great. Actually, they come out really nice, as a rule. Now, I have the hinges off the old door, and we're going to reuse those. No reason not to. And I measured where they go. Can you see that? I'll do it this side. Yeah, I measured the tops of the hinges and how far in they go, which is going to be the same on the door frame. Because most of the time, hinges don't go all the way to the face of the door. So make sure you got them lined up. Slide it in there. And then just go around it with your pencil. It's just that easy. Nice dark line. That's good. I would mark both at once, but I'm just doing this as a demonstration. Now you take your router and verify that the bit is set about as deep as the thickness of a hinge. This is. You'll notice that nearly all modern hinges have the corners rounded off, and it's a 1/2 inch radius. Reason being, nearly everyone who hangs doors has a 1/2 inch bit in their router. See how that works? Okay. And now you just take it and slowly route out that wood. I'll show you what it looks like. See, it's just a little fuzzy around the edges, mainly because my bit's not the sharpest. And if I grab a hinge and drop it, should fit pretty much exactly. Now I'm just going to go do the other one. If the unthinkable happens, you can always either widen them with your utility knife or add a little dab of spackle to fill in a hole. So pretty easy stuff. I'm just going to bolt on those hinges, pre-drilling the holes first, and then we'll be ready to actually hang the door in the opening. Okay, going to go to hang the door now. These doors are really light. You can just lever it up with a boot toe or hold it with your left arm while you screw it. But as you get into heavier doors, you're probably going to want some sort of a pry bar, what do you call this, panel jack. You also use them for hanging drywall, but you step on one side and it lifts up the door. And when you're talking those big oak entry doors, this is your only man. You're not going to do it without one of these, unless you have like a team, but I usually work alone. But pretty easy, you get it lined up, stomp on your lifter, sort of guide it with your other hand, and then shoot a screw. Alright. Yeah, it's still pretty well lined up, so now you just shoot a couple more screws. There's the first hinge. And then you do this one over here. Once you get this third screw in and the other hinge, it's pretty much on there, and you can let go of the jack. So there you go. Screw off the rest of that, and then we'll mount the knob. Sometimes if the old holes are really stripped, which is not uncommon in an apartment like this where it's been replaced 20 or 30 times, you might need to hammer a matchstick in there so that you have something for your screws to grip to. These are almost at that point, but I think they'll do one more door replacement. Except for that bottom one. I spoke too soon. Yeah, that's just spinning loose in that hole. So what I'll do, I won't even bother finding a matchstick. I'll just take one of my plane shavings from when I planed that door, and I'll just kind of roll it up into a little taco shape and shove it in the hole. And that'll give my screw something to grip to. Just kind of take my awl and stuff it in there. Used to do the same thing when I was in my ski bum phase. I used to mount bindings. The hole strip, we just put a little wood glue and a little wood and screw it in. And that's life safety, and it worked fine, so it's fine for doors. So anyway, get that last screw in, and on to the next step. Okay. So there's a lot of kind of patent jigs that you can use for doing the knob holes. You could also freehand them, I guess, but you probably want a jig because locks are, just need enough precision to work, not stick, that it's worth using a jig for. I kind of like this one. It's probably the simplest and cheapest there is. Ryobi makes it, and it's really more of a marking jig. The other ones actually like guide your drill, but if you're marked precisely, you don't need anything to guide your drill. So you just slide it on there, and it lines itself up automatically with this strike plate. See it's got this tab that just goes into the strike plate, and then it has these sort of targets on it, and you just hit them, and that marks your door with a little pin. And you pull it off. I like to put a little circle around the holes so I don't lose them. And so what we're going to need to do is we're going to do a 1-inch spade bit in from the edge. And then we're going to use a hole saw to actually make the hole from the knob. You want to drill the one from the edge first, and you want to use pilot bits on all these so that you can get them really straight. So this all comes in the same kit. Just a little brad point bit for a pilot bit, 1-inch spade bit, and a hole saw that comes with the mandrel. So must be about that. Do these with the cordless drill, but you kind of run the battery down fast when you're doing the big bits and the hole sawing. So I like to get a full-size 1/2-inch drill. Anytime I'm pushing the big bits in wood. Take your time, make sure everything's nice and square. Just because I'm paranoid, I just check that is a 1 3/8 offset, and it is. Comes into the hole, measure twice, cut once thing. Okay, get nice and square. Well, there we go. I went ahead and drilled my holes, mounted my knobs, got a good working door. And chips in the door. No. I said I knew it closed better than that. No, it's a good. It's done. Of course, someone should come and they should prime the whole door, paint it. I would do that, except that I know that they're going to paint this whole suite. So my work here is done. Now you can see I'm pretty sweaty. It's not because the job was so hard, so don't freak out. It's because it's about 120 degrees in here right now. So I think I'm going to go and get an ice cream cone or something. Until then, have fun. Hope this is helpful. Have a good time. Bye.